When Eilat Mazar realized she discovered an ancient structure near Jerusalem, she turned to the Bible to help explain what she found.
And she learned that this new discovery supports the biblical accounts of King David and his son Solomon.
For centuries, the location of King Solomon's tomb had remained a mystery to historians, explorers, and treasure hunters who have searched for it relentlessly. However, a few years ago, beneath the ancient hills of Jerusalem, a discovery began to change the conversation. The speculation, stories, theories, and traditions are no longer just there to fill history. The findings were leading to something big. A tomb that had all the royal description of Solomon's glory. Join us in this video as we uncover the details about what was found in King Solomon's tomb opened after 5,000 years. The legend of King Solomon, true or false? To understand how we got here, we have to go back to the beginning. In the Bible, Solomon is remembered as a king of extraordinary wisdom and immense wealth. He is also closely tied to the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred chest believed to have been kept in the temple he built around 950 BC. Solomon passed away over 5,000 years ago, and for generations, his tomb was often dismissed as nothing more than a legend. Many historians believed it simply never existed. Then, references to an old, nearly forgotten tunnel beneath the hills of Jerusalem began to surface. And that's when the story took an unexpected turn. For a very long time, archaeologists had been excavating in this region, searching for traces of a king who, according to ancient accounts, was buried with unimaginable wealth and honor. The king they were searching for was Solomon, a name that still echoes through history. Solomon was known not only for his extraordinary wisdom, but also for building a kingdom that became a powerful symbol of prosperity and influence. He became king at a young age, taking the throne after the death of his father, King David. But Solomon did more than simply rule. He transformed the kingdom. Trade expanded rapidly, and ships carried goods to and from distant lands. Gold, spices, and valuable materials flowed into Jerusalem, gradually turning the city into one of the most prosperous centers of the ancient world. During this time, Solomon began one of the most ambitious projects of his reign, the construction of the first temple. The project took 7 years to complete. The temple was built with remarkable craftsmanship. Cedar wood was imported from Lebanon. Sections of the structure were covered in gold. Massive stones were carved and fitted together with such precision that the joints were almost invisible. The entire project reflected the advanced engineering skills and vast resources available during Solomon's reign. Yet Solomon's reputation wasn't built on wealth alone. His wisdom became legendary. One of the most famous stories tells of 2 women who both claimed to be the mother of the same child. To uncover the truth, Solomon proposed a shocking solution: divide the child in 2 and give each woman half. He never intended for the child to be harmed. Instead, he knew the real mother would reveal herself. And she did. The woman who begged the king to spare the child, even if it meant giving the baby to the other woman, was recognized as the true mother. That decision strengthened Solomon's reputation as a king of remarkable wisdom and justice. His fame spread far beyond his own kingdom. Eventually, it reached the Queen of Sheba, who traveled to meet him in person. She arrived with camels loaded with spices, gold, and treasures, along with many difficult questions meant to test his wisdom. But after meeting Solomon, she reportedly admitted that the stories she had heard about him didn't even come close to the reality. Because of moments like these, Solomon is remembered not just as a king, but as one of the most fascinating and influential figures in ancient history. And his influence reached far beyond Jerusalem. Ancient accounts suggest that Solomon's ships traveled across distant seas to lands that were largely unknown at the time. Some texts mention places like Ophir and Tarshish, mysterious locations that historians are still trying to identify today. Some researchers believe those mysterious regions were located somewhere in Africa, while others think they may have been connected to India. Wherever they were, the journeys brought back incredible wealth. Ships returned with ivory, rare goods, and other valuable treasures, resources that could make any kingdom extraordinarily rich in that era. Another important piece of the story lies in the copper mines of the Timna Valley in southern Israel. Many historians believe that the copper extracted from these mines played a major role in strengthening Solomon's economy. Even today, archaeologists continue to explore the area, searching for clues that might connect the mines to Solomon's reign. But where was King Solomon buried? Why did the Bible never mention it? Keep watching to find out. Finding King Solomon's tomb. Surprisingly, no tomb has ever been found. There is no clearly marked burial site, no royal mausoleum, and no inscription that definitively points to his final resting place. Some believe his tomb may lie hidden somewhere beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Others suggest it could be inside a cave that was deliberately sealed long ago. For decades, archaeologists conducted excavations and proposed countless theories. Yet every time the search reached a critical point, the result was the same: nothing. Eventually, interest in the mystery faded. Many historians began to treat Solomon's tomb as one of history's unsolved questions, something that might never be answered. But the story didn't end there. In fact, that was only the beginning of a new chapter. Then something unexpected happened, something that brought the ancient mystery back into the spotlight. A discovery was made. Whether it was the result of careful research or pure accident, no one could say for sure. But what was uncovered had the potential to change everything. It wasn't just a tomb. It was a clue, one that had been buried in silence for nearly 3,000 years, as if the past itself had been waiting for the right moment to speak again. And what was hidden there marked the true beginning of the story. An archaeologist named Dr. Emily Carter, better known for carefully studying ancient documents than for making dramatic discoveries, was reviewing old records in the Jerusalem archives. While examining centuries-old documents, she came across something unusual. Hidden within tax records from the time of Solomon was a small but intriguing clue. Payments were being sent to a place whose name didn't appear in any official registry. The location mentioned seemed to be somewhere near the city of David, an ancient area of Jerusalem where history often seems to rise straight out of the ground. Excavations there have repeatedly uncovered artifacts linked to stories from the Bible, but the name of this place had somehow disappeared from history, as if it had been deliberately erased or forgotten over time. That single clue was enough to spark curiosity. Dr. Carter and her team decided to focus their investigation on that very area. Using ground-penetrating radar, they began scanning a rugged slope in the Silwan district just south of the old city. The work was difficult. The terrain was filled with jagged limestone, loose soil, and unstable ground. On top of that, the location itself was extremely sensitive, both historically and politically, which meant the team had to proceed with extreme caution. Progress was slow, and at times they were forced to pause their work entirely. After a sudden heavy rainstorm, the soaked earth began to shift. The downpour loosened the soil along the slope, and a small depression appeared in the ground. At first glance, it looked ordinary, but when the team examined it more closely, they noticed something unusual. The exposed section of rock looked different from the surrounding limestone, as if something beneath the surface had been carefully carved or altered long ago. When the team ran the radar again over that exact spot, the screen suddenly came alive. Signals flashed rapidly, almost like a heartbeat. What appeared beneath the surface was astonishing. A network of tunnels began to take shape on the radar display. These weren't natural caves formed by erosion. They were deep, carefully carved passages, structures clearly created by human hands. The tunnels were cut into solid rock about 13 meters below the surface. At that moment, it became clear to everyone involved. This was no ordinary discovery. It wasn't just another theory or speculation. It was a real clue, one pointing toward a secret that had been hidden for a very long time. What more did they discover there? How disturbing were these finds? Let's see. Shivers and surprises. As the team studied the tunnels more closely, they realized something remarkable. The system had been designed with extraordinary intelligence. There were false passages, misleading turns, and entrances that seemed to lead nowhere. Some pathways intentionally directed explorers in the wrong direction. It was almost like a maze built to confuse anyone trying to break in. One wrong move could cause the ancient structure and the rocks surrounding it to collapse. To better understand what they were dealing with, Dr. Carter spent long nights studying fragments of ancient texts. The markings she found didn't clearly explain anything. Instead, they seemed deliberately vague, almost as if they had been written to mislead thieves and grave robbers. But when she carefully pieced the fragments together, a pattern began to emerge. The clues suggested the presence of a door that was both hidden and obvious at the same time, a cleverly disguised entrance that blended into the surrounding stone. It wasn't a dramatic trap or a mechanical defense. Instead, it was something far more subtle, a quiet, intelligent security system built directly into the design of the structure. And what had been uncovered so far was only a small part of the entire complex. In fact, researchers estimated that less than a quarter of the structure had been revealed. Most of it still remained buried deep underground, waiting to be explored. But the real turning point came from somewhere completely unexpected. While researching local history, the team came across an old folk tale, a story that had been passed down for generations among shepherds in the region. The tale spoke of a mountain that glowed under the moonlight and of a mysterious wall that, from a distance, looked like a sky full of stars. Dr. Carter stood at the edge of that very mountain. The ground was still wet from the rain, and with every step, his boots sank slightly into the soft earth. Yet something about the place felt different. The silence was deeper. The rocks seemed unusually still and solid, almost as if they were guarding something hidden beneath them. In that moment, he became convinced they were standing in the right place. The destination felt close. The sense of it was almost tangible. Somewhere beyond that sealed tunnel, behind a doorway that had remained untouched for thousands of years, something was waiting to be uncovered. What happened next would challenge long-held historical beliefs and leave the entire team stunned. Because the moment that the ancient seal finally began to break, the story itself was about to change. This week, archaeologists came closer than ever to the possible tomb of a king long thought to be lost to history. Imagine it, a single stone slab standing between the modern world and a secret buried for nearly 3,000 years, a slab that may never have been meant to move. What did they find in the slab? How does this change everything we thought we knew about King Solomon? Keep watching to find out. Shocking what they found inside King Solomon's tomb. As the ground trembled faintly beneath their feet, Dr. Carter leaned closer to examine the ancient Hebrew markings carved near the entrance. There was a pattern to them, 7 lines and 7 symbols arranged in a deliberate sequence. Beside them was an engraved design that seemed to correspond with the 7 years it took to build the first temple. The carvings hinted at several things: the temple itself, the rebuilding of Jerusalem, and even subtle references to the future. These were not simple decorations. They were clues. Realizing how delicate the situation was, the team brought out their laser tools and 3D scanners, carefully mapping every detail of the stone, every line, every groove, every symbol. The work felt less like excavation and more like a precision operation. The tension in the air was almost overwhelming. For 3 days straight, they worked in near silence. they adjusted hidden levers, aligned ancient mechanisms, and held their breath each time the massive stone slab shifted even slightly. The deeper they went, the quieter the tunnel seemed to become, so quiet it felt as if the mountain itself were listening. Then, finally, the moment arrived. A deep rumble echoed through the passageway. The ground vibrated, and fine dust began falling from the ceiling. Slowly, the stone slab started to move. A thin crack appeared, slicing through the darkness beyond the doorway. The team instinctively stepped back and stared into the opening. Following strict archaeological protocol, the team began documenting the moment on camera. They knew that what they were witnessing was more than the opening of a hidden chamber. It was the beginning of a new chapter in history. Dr. Carter slowly raised his hand, signaling everyone to remain silent. Instantly, the entire group froze. No one moved. No one spoke. In that stillness, they all understood the same thing. They were standing at the threshold of something extraordinary. This wasn't the end of a long search. It was the first heartbeat of a story that had remained silent for thousands of years. What lay hidden beyond that darkness was still unknown. But one thing was certain. Whoever designed this tomb clearly never intended for all its secrets to be revealed at once. And what came next was likely to surprise even the most skeptical observers. Then suddenly, a flashlight beam landed on something that gleamed in the darkness. In that moment, the realization settled over the team. They were no longer chasing a rumor or an ancient legend. They were standing deep beneath the city of David, inside a sealed chamber that had remained untouched for thousands of years. Dr. Carter's team gathered closer together, their flashlights trembling slightly in their hands. What stood before them wasn't a myth. It was real. Spread around the chamber were objects carefully arranged, preserved in the corners as if they had been waiting patiently for someone to find them. Along the walls sat golden vessels, each inscribed with ancient Hebrew lettering. Their surfaces still gleamed in the light, looking almost as if they had been polished only days before. The air inside the chamber carried a strange scent, an unusual blend of spices, resins, and damp earth. It was slightly sweet, but heavy, like the lingering trace of ancient rituals. Then, in one corner of the room, something extraordinary stood rising from the floor. A 7-branched menorah. It was large and solid, its design perfectly matching the descriptions of the sacred menorah said to have stood in the first temple. This wasn't a replica meant for display. It looked real, perhaps even the original. And it quickly became clear that this was only the beginning. Everywhere the team looked, new pieces of the past seemed to reveal themselves. During their careful examination, the team noticed strange patterns etched into the wall. Upon closer inspection, they realized these were not words but a musical notation, markings designed for ancient instruments long lost to time. This was the city of David, not Solomon's tomb. So the search continues. Could there be clues that they missed about the original site of Solomon's tomb? Could the tomb be in the Bible? Let's see. The speculated site of Solomon's tomb. According to the Bible, in the first book of Kings, toward the end of his life, King David grew so old that he could not get warm. To care for him, the court searched across Israel and found Abishag the Shunammite, a young and beautiful woman. She was brought to David to serve him, tending to his needs, but the text makes it clear, the king knew her not. During this time, power struggles were brewing within the court. Adonijah, David's eldest son and heir apparent, tried to declare himself king, but Bathsheba and the prophet Nathan acted quickly, persuading David to crown Solomon instead, honoring a promise David had made earlier. Even though Solomon was younger than his brothers, he became the chosen successor. Once king, Solomon wasted no time consolidating his authority. Following David's instructions, he carried out a thorough purge of potential rivals, including Joab, his father's chief general. At the same time, Solomon placed loyal friends and allies in key positions, civil, military, and religious, ensuring the stability of his reign. Remarkably, he is said to have ascended the throne at only 15 years old. Solomon expanded Israel's military strength, especially the cavalry and chariot units. He founded colonies that served as both trading posts and military outposts, and grew the bureaucracy to manage his growing kingdom. Trade was a cornerstone of Solomon's administration. He maintained his father's profitable alliance with King Hiram I of Tyre, sending joint expeditions to faraway lands such as Tarshish and Ophir. These ventures brought back luxury goods, gold, silver, sandalwood, pearls, ivory, exotic animals, and peacocks, making Solomon the wealthiest Israelite king recorded in the Bible. After ruling for 40 years, Solomon died of natural causes at about 55 years old, and there was no specific mention about his place of burial. Chances are that he was buried where his father was. Following his death, his son Rehoboam became king, but 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel rejected his rule. This division split the kingdom. The northern kingdom of Israel came under Jeroboam, while Rehoboam continued to rule the smaller southern kingdom of Judah. From that point on, the two kingdoms remained separate and were never reunited. What do you think about the amazing discoveries made in the search for King Solomon's tomb? Do you think that tomb exists? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for joining us as we revealed the shocking findings made in the quest for Solomon's tomb. We hope you found this video both insightful and interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen to explore more interesting discoveries. See you there.